On the last episode, I flew to California to pick up a 1968 Ford Mustang coupe. I had the intention of driving it all the way back to British Columbia after my friends and I had worked on it over the course of 5 days. We eventually got it fixed up and running to the point where we thought it would actually make the trip home. Things started to go south when it was running on 4 cylinders. After getting it around town for a day, we realized that the car was not quite right, and after throwing a carburetor on it, it died and eventually wouldn't run at all. So I threw it on a truck and trailer to get past some winter storms and got it up to Bellingham, Washington, got it into storage, made plans to come back and get it running. Good day, everybody. Welcome back to the shop. Pretty crazy last episode, flying down to California to purchase and try to get the 68 Mustang home. Didn't quite work out, but we'll deal with that. Right now, as you saw probably from the intro, we're going out of the car. It's down in Washington across the border. The paperwork and stuff for export is it's gonna be all week. Let's just face it, I'm not gonna put my high hopes that I'll somehow get it done before Friday. So what I'm doing right now, actually, just because I wanna keep things rolling with the car, is I went down to Mopac Auto Supply yesterday and picked up an MSD ready to run distributor. So basically I'm gonna stab that in and see if that fixes the ignition problem. And I also grabbed a new coil, an MSD blaster coil, and some plugs from NGK, just in case. Kind of the last thing that we didn't really touch, everything else around that touched. I figured, why not just simplify it, get a quality part that I know is gonna work. And so we're gonna throw that in and hopefully drive it around, test out the car a little more and do some filming. So we didn't really get a full drive with it, and I didn't want to leave you guys hanging. So yeah, that's what we're doing. I'm gonna load up the GTI with some tools and some parts, and we're gonna head down to Washington. So let's get to it. All right. Extensions and swivels and stuff. 1/2-inch drive, impact stuff, jumpers, lights, camera, more tools, parts. I think we're good. Let's hope that's enough crap to get the felony going. I think it will be. I think distributor is the issue. Cut to me at the end of the video crying because I couldn't get the thing to run. It's just not firing up. All right. See you down in Washington. All right, back to the felony.
So the guy that runs the storage place was cool enough to let me work on it. I asked him ahead of time.
As long as you're not doing some crazy swap or tearing the whole car apart. But yeah, so the plan is obviously carb hat, but distributor, cap and rotor, and plugs and wires are coming out. I'm gonna crank it over, make sure there's no gas still pulled in there. And yeah. MSD distributor in there, which I actually don't think is going to fit past the carb hat now. That's a bit of an oversight. It's okay. And yeah, just going to start picking at it. So basically, we'll pull the distributor, we'll pull a plug on number 1, crank the engine over to top dead center. The way you do that is you get 15/16 on the crank bolt, and then you turn the engine over until you have your finger down the spark plug hole. You turn it over until you feel compression. You stick your screwdriver or whatever down there. Just crank it over until you get the screwdriver to go all the way up. Once it starts coming back down, you can rotate it backwards and get it back to the top. And that's going to be relatively top dead center. And then you can adjust your ignition timing once you have your distributor in. So. So diving right into it, started by removing the carb hat and disconnecting the battery. I then popped all the plug wires off the car so that I could remove the cap from the distributor and expose the rotor. I then disconnected the wiring from the coil to the distributor, began pulling the spark plugs so that I could verify that there was no gas sitting in the cylinders that could potentially cause a massive backfire or even a hydrolock. Yeah, see, that's all gasoline. Okay, plugs are out. I'm gonna crank the motor over and just double check that there's no gas chilling in the cylinders. Plugs in, distributor out, new distributor in, try and fire it up. So I got number one out. Now what I'm going to do is rotate the engine over with a 15/16 on the crank bolt, and once I feel compression on my finger in the hole, I'll put a screwdriver down there and then rotate it until the screwdriver tops out, just comes back down. I'll put it back a little bit, and then the rotor will show us top dead center, so when we go and stab the MSD in there, we'll kind of clock it relatively the same, and then we have our number one. So it's pretty sweet. So while struggling to not slice open my wrists on the Flexolite fan, I got the engine rotated over until I could feel air rushing up the cylinder trying to press my thumb out of the spark plug hole. That's how you know you are on the compression stroke without opening up the valve cover or having a piston stop. All right, next thing, distributor's gonna come out. I'm also gonna mark relatively, probably, we'll say kind of right in line with the water temp sensor. It's about where we want the new rotor to point on the electronic ignition. Removing the body of the distributor itself is pretty straightforward. There's just the 1/2-inch bolt with the clamp on the block that you remove. A little bit of fiddling, finger dangling, but eventually comes out. And then you should realistically just be able to pop the distributor straight out of the gear. All right, this is an MSD ready to run. Electronic ignition, so basically stab it in, check the orientation of the rotor. We should be good to go. Before I stab this in, I'm gonna remove the cap, and we're gonna coat the gear in the supplied assembly lube because, you know, this does mesh with the gear down on the oil pump drive. So you want that to obviously have a little bit of break-in. So we're going to coat that in the supplied lube they got, and we're going to pop it in there. Everything's nice and simple on these things. Phillips head, flat head, 1/2-inch. Time it with your hand and your ear. You don't need a computer. It's one thing I've really been missing about old cars. Even the GC, you know, you need a laptop to mess with it. This is, you know, we're working on it in a storage unit. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to stab this in, kind of rotate this back a little bit so that when it meshes in, it turns back to where the original rotor was pointing. So do not forget the O-ring, that is bad. It should fall into place where TAC was. Oh, I hope this thing clears the water pump. I think that's in. We're like about there, we're just a little bit off. I'm gonna go one more tooth. Now let's wire it up. All right, new issue has emerged. I was checking out the ground of the block because you gotta run this little guy to the block. And so I grabbed the main ground, and this wire ceasing to exist. This has to do with, where are we at? Yeah, so it's alternator. So
That would explain erratic charging and stuff like we saw when we put the new alternator in and actually got the field wire right. So I'm gonna try and remedy that. I got some connectors in the car. See if we can make that a little better.
So being that I didn't exactly know what these ground wires were for, I'm assuming they were for the alternator and the starter. I basically thought it was just best if I repair them and put them back, then if whatever is attached is functioning, it will function correctly and there would be no open circuits or grounding out. Got everything wired up loosely for now. It's not staying like this because it's sketchy, and this realistically is just to get the car on the trailer, get it fired up around the block maybe, and go from there. And fingers crossed, it cracks right to life. We adjust timing and it just runs. So, did not think to get plug wires because I was like, oh, I have plug wires that will work with the distributor, thinking whatever, they're just a press-on plug wire. No. The boot doesn't go anywhere near the post, and that'll just end up causing it to arc out. So yeah, that's a problem. I think what I'm going to quickly do is call the local O'Reilly's and just see if they got MSD plug wires, and that's the easy fix. Made a bit of a mess, wasn't really supposed to. So excuse the ketchup and mustard. Had to go and grab plug wires with the right boot for the extended post, and I actually had to use one of the old plug wires for the coil because it didn't have the right end on both ends for the original coil wire, so hopefully that works. Everything's wired up. I'm gonna put power to it, roll it back. With any luck, it'll fire up. Alright, tried to start it. Crank's over fine. I checked, nothing's contacting anywhere. Weird, I let the key off and it like made a loud bang. So I hope I didn't like hydraulic a cylinder or something. I have no clue what that was. I'm gonna crank it one more time and see. Okay, well, we're getting somewhere. Okay, I think I might be 180 degrees out. I'm gonna check that. I'm gonna get the number one back to TDC and make sure the rotor is pointing at the number one that I marked on the distributor. Not sure how I would have got it wrong. Well, really unfortunate. Been picking at this all day. Just sucks you in. You're like, I'll just try this, I'll just try that. Before you know it, you've been south of the border for 6 hours and you really should get home. Unfortunately, I think I've killed the battery or the starter to the point where I can't even get to crank. It's just like making really bad noise. I think I'm gonna stop messing with it and just play it safe and get it home. I don't wanna cause an electrical hazard or, you know, catch fire in a storage unit that really I don't have any bearing over other than I should just be moving shit in and out. Really unfortunate. I wanted to get running for you guys. I got it to fire on 4 cylinders and then it just sputtered through the carb and died. So don't know if it was completely flooded because of, you know, a lack of ignition, but I've timed this thing every which way I could today and I cannot get it figured out. It's a mystery, guys. Well, I wish it was the Mustang we were driving out of here, but not gonna happen today. It's okay. We'll get back to it and either just trailer it home and tear everything out and get it to run that way, or maybe we'll get it here. Maybe I can come back down later this week. I'll figure it out. See you guys in a bit. I gotta figure something out because I'm kind of screwed for content now. All right, see you in a bit.
highway sure looks familiar. All right, heading back down to the Felony to see if I can get it running. Got a whole bunch of helpful tips from a lot of cool people on Instagram and YouTube and everything, so really appreciate all you guys chiming in. I'm not one of those guys that's like, I don't need any fucking, like, I really actually take all the comments and everything, you know, and I actually absorb them and think about like what you guys are saying, because, you know, I don't know these things. I'm trying to learn. I know, you know, I've messed with new cars and all kinds of different shit, but honestly, old carbureted cars are something I've never really dealt with, so I'm picking this up as I go. I really do appreciate all the comments and the helpful tips and stuff. Keep them coming. 20 minutes from the car. I'm gonna start by not doing anything except diagnosing. We're gonna check that the car either does or doesn't have a ballast resistor, which could be a problem. We're gonna check the voltage regulator, and if I have to, I'm just gonna jump 12 volts from the battery right to the coil to give it a constant 12 volts, because that's what the newer coils require. Basically going to be diagnosing. A couple quick little things to try. I don't have long today. I do want to get back. I have some things to do tonight, so got to get back over the border before I get trapped in the Vancouver rush hour. Don't want to do that. Anyway, I do have the export documentation. We will have the car home next week. I will be getting it Tuesday. Got to get a truck. I got to rent a trailer, and we're just going to zip down here, get the car on there, whether it's driving or whether I got to push it, and we'll get it home to the shop. So I'm really excited about that. All right, guys. I will see you in a few.
All right, we're back. Hopefully I don't get busted doing this, but okay. So first thing I'm gonna do is verify that we got 12 volts to the coil. If we don't have 12 volts to the coil with the key on, that means there's a ballast resistor somewhere that I gotta track down and disconnect. We'll look at a few other things, maybe do some wiring, see if we can get it to crack off, because pretty sure I've timed it right. Now I've just got to deal with dead battery, which I have a battery. But long story short, I want to get it running. Shouldn't be too much fiddling, but not guaranteeing, guys. I know it would be a shitty video if it didn't, but that's reality. I'm not going to fake it. So anyway, let's do it. All right, keys on. So should see 12 volts. I have 12 volts at the coil. So I verified that we got 12 volts to the coil, and I put the other one in the box, but on the bottom of the other one it said to use inline. It said to use with a ballast resistor, an inline resistor, and I don't think that will work with the MSD distributor, being that this setup I think needs constant 12 volts. That's what my buddy Tommy told me. So testing this, key on, we got 12 volts to the distributor, which means that there's no inline ballast resistor, which explains the orange wire going to the ignition. I think this had a setup like this at some point. Maybe that's what was causing it to run bad the whole time, was a shitty coil. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to see if it will start up like this. I think, yeah, my timing is tight. Last thing I tried before I left was moving the plugs over one, because I think I was out one post. So I'm gonna toss a new battery in here, see if it cranks, see if it'll spark or fire or anything, really. And we'll go from there. Okay, so I also tested the coil with resistance. And this has only got 1 ohm resistance, and I think from what I'm reading that you're supposed to get 3 to 5 in a good coil, which could possibly explain that this thing is bad. So I'm actually going to verify I'm going to take the MSD back out, and or I'm just going to disconnect the wires and then test the resistance on that one and verify that one has like 3 to 5 instead of what that one is showing, which is 0.5 to 1. Four ohms. So that tells me that coil was fried, but it was working. So what fried it? Went to fire up the car, and there's my negative, and that would explain why it was clicking yesterday and the battery still has cranking amps. So I'm gonna go find a terminal that I can bolt on here and maybe a coffee. So be right back. Okay, got some new battery terminals. Figured I'd get both. Might as well do the positive because that looks horrendous. So after a quick bite of a breakfast sandwich, I began tearing apart the old terminals. I took off the positive one first. Basically, I just unbolted the ring terminal and got the channel locks out to try and uncrimp it as best I could without tearing it or shredding the wires apart. Basically, after that, you just undo the clamp on the new terminal, slip it over and twist it so that the wires are nice and snug and uniform, and then tighten it back down. I really like these terminals. I do prefer them because it's easy to put on another circuit or a junction or anything like that to a distribution block. Just makes it a lot easier. Storage unit is lit today. There's people coming in and out like crazy. Try not to draw too much attention to myself. So if new terminals are on, I'm gonna back the car up a bit and see if it'll crack off. Let's hope it makes noise. I don't know. I really don't know what it could be. It appears that I am overlooking something completely, but it's just not firing up. Yeah, I don't really have a second pair of hands to verify spark and stuff here, and I don't want to be jumping and stuff. Like, I'm trying to play on the side of caution here. I don't want to burn down a storage unit and be fined and, you know, be on the hook for everybody's belongings. So I'm gonna call it here. Unfortunately, just could not get it to start. It's just, I'm a dummy. It's probably just something stupid. Like I said, I want to go through and rip out all the garbage wiring and make everything right. I want to drive it and have it drive and get a good baseline of where I want the car to go, and then start tearing it apart again. Makes total sense, I know. I'm still learning this stuff, so I'm not great at it. You know, I am finding out a lot of cool stuff along the way about timing and figuring out the mechanical timing and ignition timing of a car, while, you know, figuring out that the electrical on an MSD needs 12 volts and all kinds of cool stuff. I'm figuring it out as I go, which I'm really enjoying. And like I said, I'm really enjoying all the tips and tricks from you guys. So please don't be a stranger. Feel free to comment and send me messages, whatever. Like, it's part of the hobby. So anyway, guys, I'm going to end it off here. I'll see you back at the shop. We'll debrief and we'll go over kind of the idea with this car, because I want to show you guys what I have in store and the plans for where we're going this year. Well, we got one Mustang in here, and that's something. That didn't go as expected. What can I say, guys? I'm not a genius at making old cars run yet. I've still got a lot to learn, and there's a lot of things that are still variables in that car that I really don't feel comfortable messing with in a storage unit, that like I really don't have adequate insurance on and all that. And you know, you're liable for anything you destroy in there. So if I'm trying to dump fuel out, or you know, if I cause a fire or something electrical melts down, it could be pretty bad. So I just for the sake of I don't really need to have it running there, just decided to say fuck it, let's just get it home and really tear into it. So the plan is I get the car on Tuesday. I'm gonna have a truck and trailer ready to go. I'm gonna go down there with my buddy Steven on Tuesday morning and pick it up. I'm gonna shove it on the trailer, bring it back. I'm gonna try and get it running next week and get it around the block here. I'm gonna have to do inspection and all that stuff once it's in Canada to be able to insure it, which I need to take care of before I start to really tear it apart and rebuild everything. As of right now, I got 93 days until Power Tour starts, which means I probably have less than 90 to get it done. Probably about 80 if I'm being honest, because you need at least a week of shakedown to send a car across the country. That's just kind of my thing. I really have an image in my mind of what this car could look like, what I want it to be. And I really, I keep harking back to the old Trans Am Holman Moody NASCAR style Mustangs of the glory days in the 60s and 70s. I want it low, I want it on either torque thrusts or mini lights, super lights, you know, really kind of road race focused, but in a more of a classic spin on it. It's obviously still gonna have leafs in the back. I would like to get it on some QA1 coilovers in the front and deal with all that. And I really just have an image of it being low with a ducktail and an air dam and, you know, a cool paint scheme that I'm not going to reveal to you guys until it's time to do it, because I got a really neat idea for it. But I really have an image of this car being able to handle, you know, for an old muscle car fairly decently, and just kind of be a mix similar to what the GC8 would be like, you know, something that I can race and you know, still drive on the street and have it not be too crazy. Although this one will be more on the Spartan side of things. It's not really going to have an interior. It's not going to have any amenities, not even air conditioning. It's going to be a chassis, wheels, tires, suspension, motor, trans, and it's going to go like hell. As soon as I saw the car in California, I knew exactly what I wanted. I had a clear image, and that's why I'm going this path and, you know, pursuing this project, because in my mind, when I bought the GC8, I had a clear image of what I wanted. In my mind, when I bought the Verdict, I had this image in my mind. Something that is high RPM and fun and has this kind of look to it. It's just, when I have that vision and I can see it, I gotta pull the trigger. So that's what I did. I put out this episode, so I'm gonna go finish putting this together. I really appreciate you stopping by. I'm very sorry that I left you hanging this time. Just the way it goes sometimes. I'm not a genius, and I'm not gonna hide the fact that sometimes things don't work out the way you want. So hopefully you don't crucify me for that. I appreciate you stopping by. Please do me a favor, subscribe. We hit 1,000 subscribers on the last video. So thank you to everybody that jumped on the channel. Thank you everybody that watched the show. It was really cool to see so much support for this new build, this new idea, and what I'm doing here in the shop. So I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you again for watching. And well, as always, be kind, drive hard, and I hope when the Mustang's done, I'll see you on the road. Later.